is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. Episode number 193 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, July the 22nd, 2023, and my name is Jeremy Lee. I would like to thank everybody who tuned in last Sunday with our guest, Ezra Levine from Mascot. Also want to thank everyone who tuned in last Sunday for the LCG Live. They broke several auctions, including iPhone and Master of the Universe toy sales. Also want to thank everyone who joined in for Taking Stock last Tuesday, Slab Sharks Live on Thursday, and Iconic Auctions Preview last night. Busy here on the channel, and we are not slowing down. Also, Monday, double feature. We have an REA Auctions Preview and then MC Mondays Live on Monday night. Couple of sponsors I would like to thank and tell you about. Please join over 400,000 people who have already downloaded the Center Stage app across both iOS and Android for quick comps and card management features. Their app is the fastest and most accurate at card shows or at home to help you price your cards. You can build, organize, and share your collection with friends and find other collectors to follow using their new social sharing features. They've announced some exciting new grading partnerships, so check out their Instagram account and please join me in supporting the team and the innovation they are undertaking. Also, use protection, practice safe swaps. VeriSwap is an app and middleman service that lets you securely trade cards through the mail. Every transaction up to 1 million in value is fully insured by their guarantee. To use VeriSwap, upload your inventory, make trade, partial trade, or full cash offers, negotiate with thousands of traders already on the platform. Check that out on iOS and on Android, and as part of a special offer, your first trade on VeriSwap is $1. There is a referral link in the video description below. Also, check out their Master Swapper competition with the belt that will be awarded at the Wolfpack Trade Night. Also want to shout out and thank Leighton Sheldon, Just Collect. He'll be joining us a little bit later tonight for the Vintage Spotlight. Check out hobbynewsdaily.com, daily dose of hobby news and entertaining content. And finally, Tag Grading, the Discord service, and the Facebook group are both live and active. So join other hobbyists who are chatting, buying, selling, trading, sharing picks, and just talking shop, connecting with other collectors who like transparent and reproducible grading. Go to taggrading.com, the community tab, to enter either of those communities. And you will find out first about Tag's grading drops, even surprise flash drops. And Tag will be grading on site at the National in a couple next week. So go ahead, get ready to have drop by the booth, get ready to have your mind blown in terms of what the future of grading does look like. I want to thank all partners and supporters of Sports Cards Live for your ongoing support, and especially you, the listeners, the podcast subscribers, the viewers. Appreciate all you. If you're not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, please take a moment and do so. And as always tonight, your comments and your questions, they are in play. Let's get to it. Tonight's guest, he started in the hobby in 2003 when he went to the National with his brothers in Atlantic City as a kid because of LeBron James, and he has been in the hobby ever since. His favorite athlete is Luka Doncic, originally from Long Island, New York, and currently hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's bring him out right now. Chad Bleznick, Mr. CBlez, welcome to Sports Cards Live.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me. It's going to be an amazing conversation tonight. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you too, Chad. We've been talking about having you on the show for about a year. I think I'm trying to remember the first time we met in person. I think it was at the first Burbank show. Is that right? Or was it before?
It was the Burbank show. I think it was like right outside the trade night we met.
Yeah, that's right. We met there for the first time, got along really well instantly. Which is just always nice when you meet a like-minded person who enjoys cardboard. So it was great to meet you. We've been talking about having you on ever since. Here we are. We're getting to it. And I think one of the things that I just want to say, when I first met you, and you have a place online. You are a creator. You have a persona, a reputation. When I met you, I come in without any judgment whatsoever, and you were nothing but warm and interested, and you were present in the discussion. And I thought, well, this is just a nice guy. This is just a good dude, and I'm glad to be chatting with him, and hope to build a friendship over time. I feel like we've done that now. So again, it's great to have you on the show. It is a year in the making.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, a lot of people, when they watch my stuff, they think that's everything. And it's seeing someone in person versus content. It can be the same. It can be different depending on what's going on. But I think with us, it's like we think similar on a lot of topics. And we both been in the hobby for a long, long time. And we share a passion. And I think sometimes a lot of people, like at the shows and stuff, there shouldn't be beef between anyone because we all share the love for cardboard. And at the end of the day, like that's what's bringing us to wherever we're going. Let's say the National next week. So it's like there shouldn't be beef between people. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you know what? It's a great way to think. And wouldn't the world be a more wonderful place if there actually wasn't beef between people? But there is, and you've been party to some of it over the last little while. One particular instance that did sort of make its way through other content creators. I think you went on Sports Card Radio. That feels like that's already a few months ago. I watched that, by the way, and I must say that I thought you handled yourself absolutely superbly during that appearance with the Sports Card Radio brothers. I thought you just did a great job and really represented yourself well. How did you feel coming out of that?
I thought it went pretty well. I mean, they definitely can try to antagonize people and make people, I mean, they're going for stories and drama. And I think that, honestly, I had a good conversation with them. I think the way that they think about cards, I know that they talk negatively a lot, but I know that they love cards. So I'm going to like today, I think like they're at a show or something. So it's like people, I think a lot of the times in the hobby, especially with content, people take things too seriously. And I think sometimes we need to like take a step back and understand that not everything should like rile people up. It's like a lot of the content they do make is bad. I'll say that, and it's inappropriate and it's not fit for the hobby. But I do think that people should be a little bit more in general, not related to them, but I think people should give people the benefit of the doubt and not just like rush the conclusions right away. I'm not really talking about them. I'm more talking about like a scam. People could get accused of a scam, something like that. Or whenever something like goes wrong and there's a rumor, you see a lot of people in the hobby just take like the mob mentality and like, oh, like this guy's, he's a scammer, he's a crook. And it's like, I think we need, and this is a subject I don't think a lot of people talk about, but we could talk about it. But I think that like the mob mentality comes in a lot. And I think sometimes it's just not fair. And I think sometimes we need to wait for more evidence and see what actually, I mean, it's a problem with the world today, I think. Like a lot of the news, it's tough to believe and tough to know what's true. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, we are living in a guilty till proven innocent sort of era, especially within hobby content. You mentioned that people can get accused of scams or just being bad actors, and in many cases, let's say in many cases there are bad actors in this space, but in probably I'm not going to quantify it, but in other cases somebody just something was misunderstood or misseen, or something was misconstrued for not being what it was. And it happens all the time. People jump to conclusions, and people also, I think it's human nature to project. You project how you see something, and you think that the other person must be feeling the same way or seeing it the same way. And once you realize that you are projecting and you are prone to projecting, I think you're better able to have an open mind and realize that the other people, there's different things going on in their minds than would be going on in your mind. So yeah, we are living in a guilty till proven innocent time. It happens in our hobby, in hobby content regularly right now. There's lots of it going on. And the mob mentality that you mentioned, Chad, yeah, I mean, the mob mentality is out. It's fervent right now in the hobby because it's so easy. It's just so easy to leave a comment in a YouTube chat or on an Instagram post or a tweet. It's so easy to make a comment that doesn't have merit, and then there's no repercussions. There's no accountability because
Exactly.
you're anonymous. So
No, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you just, people like forget a week later, 2 weeks later. So it's kind of like irrelevant, like a few weeks down the line most of the time. So it's like, why get so angry in the moment? To me, it's just a little bit confusing.
yeah. Okay, let's take a minute here. Let's go to some comments. I also want to remind you and everyone that Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect will be joining us for the Vintage Spotlight. We're going to have a bit of vintage conversation when he comes on. But let's go through some comments. There was one that came in earlier. Never seen this poster. Says, nice to tie betting and cards together. Hopefully the kids are watching. Well, this show starts late, and I think kids are smart enough to understand. Well, many kids are smart enough to understand, but we're not here pushing anything that you're not supposed to do until you're of legal age. Right, Chad?
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, there's advertising everywhere for everything now. So it's like, if you're going to go to my Instagram page and see something and complain, I'm sure it's a lot worse somewhere else.
Yeah, you're probably right. There's a lot of virtuousness going on out there right now as well. Lapper says it's important for kids to understand single game betting before they can even think of betting parlays. Joe Perot says, welcome, Chad. Good evening. Good to see you, Joe. Good evening, Lapper. Perk, Mosaic Mind, Jeff Hart. Good to see you. Jeff McMahon, Hockey Cardboard, Crack the Beers. Let's go. Mark Santucci, what's going on? Good to see you. Hobby Champ says the hobby is alive, baby. EGM, we are verified on chat. Carlos Diego, Sluggers 55 in the house, says, welcome, Mr. Bleznick, my favorite guy. We'll be seeing you at the National next week. Carlos, good to see you. Stukes, good to see you, says, Chad is an amazing guy. Mark Santucci says, CBlez, being you're from Long Island, are you a Mets or a Yankees fan?
I like the Yankees.
He likes the Yankees. Hobby Champ says CBlez is greater than Santiago. Do you want to address that at all, Chad?
I think at the National we're gonna settle it one way or another, and I think that honestly he came at me for a few reasons that I just thought were like preposterous. So I was just kind of more sticking up for myself, let's say. And I think things got a little bit out of proportion, but I put that to rest a few months ago. It is what it is. It's okay.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, we all have cardboard in common, and it'd be nicer if there wasn't beef. But the problem is there's a lot of really strong personalities, and there's a lot of strongly held beliefs. At least people put out there that they have strongly held beliefs. Whether they live up to those standards or not, I would question most people who are virtuous and project their so-called ethics onto the rest of the public and the hobby. But at the end of the day, we do have that we do have the cardboard in common. But the hobby is filled with people from all over, all sorts of different backgrounds and everything. So I think it's only natural that not everybody's going to get along.
But to step into that, I think we should, like I said, give people the benefit of the doubt. I realized that recently. I think people also shouldn't just make judgments through content. You should wait until you meet someone in person to make more of a judgment, which I think.
Yeah.
You got to meet someone in person before you actually determine what they're like.
I couldn't agree with more, Chad. And there's a lot of people out there that have beef with other people. And when you end up at a card show in person, I would say 0% of those people are going to go up to the person they have beef with and get in their face, because they're not protected by that buffer that is the internet anymore. And, if they were to approach the person that they have an issue with, I think that in most cases you could find a compromise or something, build some rapport and get past it. We've seen it happen already several times. And we talked about Sports Card Radio before. They used to take issue with Brian Gray. Then he went on their show. they're cool. They took issue with Ken Golden. He went on their show. I don't know if they're cool or not. I don't watch everything, but you know, that worked out. They had beef with you. You went on their show. They say nicer things about you now. So once you meet somebody in person, or even on a just a face-to-face, Zoom call sort of thing, I think you can make some progress and realize that maybe the differences aren't that important and that many. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. Most of the time, like you're saying, when people meet the person face to face, they actually flip what they thought on the internet. So it's like when you actually look at what's happening and not just like a fake world, it's got to change your behavior in some respects, but I don't think it does. That's the thing.
Yeah. Daniel A says it's the cancel culture mentality. I think there's definitely truth to that. Brent, deep value investor, have to give this guy credit. I hear his name all the time, but I have no idea what his expertise is or what he collects. Why don't you sort of share that with the audience?
So I have a breaking company with my brothers, and we specialize in the modern cards, which is like the products that come out every week. I've been collecting for 20 straight years since I was 7. I went to the National, and I collect like pretty much the younger players, like the rookies. I'll collect them for a few years. I'll pick a few players that I want to prospect on. That's my favorite thing to do in the hobby, is buying a player that nobody's buying, and hopefully they pan out and you make a big return on that. That's my favorite thing to do. And yeah, I mean, I would say I'm an expert on the modern day cards, specifically basketball, baseball, football.
Perfect. There you go, Brent. Corey Carr, hello. Lion says CBlez is a dog. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a compliment. Philly Joe, what's up? Ben Diamond says, if you are doing well enough to spend your extra money on cards, you should be grateful and kind. I mean, just being kind of is something you should be anyway, right? But I agree with Ben. If you are fortunate enough, like we're talking about the whole first world problems here a lot of the time, right? If you're consuming content, you're going to the card shows, you're buying and selling cards, you're a collector, you're ahead of 99% of the world, 90% of the world already. It would be nice to keep things in perspective a little bit. Do you find that people lose perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know. I think everyone's situation is different. Again, I don't want to like read into what people, if they're having a bad day or something's going on with their family. I feel like you just don't know. And it's just like you said, you got to just be kind to everybody because of those reasons. And it's not just cards, it's like in life.
100%. James says, I like CBlez. He's having fun. Good for him. I agree. Hey, Colin. Carlos says, looking forward to seeing you both. My favorite Canadian and favorite American. Thanks, Carlos.
I love you, Carlos.
Let's all get along. Life is short. Corey Carr, it seems like hostility has been peaking in the past couple weeks. Have you noticed that? Do you find that the past couple weeks, are you noticing any more hostility than before?
No, I think it's ramping down, in my opinion.
I feel like I'm on the same page as you there. But again, Corey Carr is seeing other things than we are, so we can't project what we're seeing on everybody else, but we see what we see. You love the hobby. You say the hobby is alive. What do you love most about the hobby? And tie that into why the hobby is alive.
Honestly, there's so many things. It's hard to answer that question, but I would say that I love how it intertwines like 5 things that I love, which is sports. I love business. I love deal making. I like the content of the industry. I like going into a shop and just hanging out like I did today. I was literally at Legacy Sports Cards like the whole day for 6 hours. I honestly just I love the atmosphere. Like that, people don't say that, but it's like I love just like people are talking sports, people are opening boxes, and then it's like, oh, you get a big pull, go over there. You got sports on the TV. I mean, when you get into the business side of it, I love that you can like buy a player and you can make like 10 times your money in like 2-3 years if he pans out. Like I love, like, you can't really do that in most other things. I feel like I have an advantage buying like rookie cards, because if you watch a ton of like college basketball and NBA and stuff, you kind of get to see who's good. And then if you're good at like scouting kind of and seeing like who you think's going to be good, I think you can do well there. I love going to the card shows and just hanging out with a bunch of the community. It's a kind of similar thing to the shop. Honestly, there's so many things. What's your favorite part?
You know, at the end of the day, because like the only part of the hobby that doesn't, that I don't think can really bring you down, if you're a collector, you know, if you are in this to flip and make money, and that's fine. I wouldn't rely on this as much, but to me, at the end of the day, it's really the cards, because the cards are something that I can always go to, and they will reground me if I'm getting fed up, or just, you know, if content is bothering me, or transactions are bothering me, or the hostility, the conflict, if any of that is starting to bring me down, I can go back to my cards, and my cards will you know, kind of ground me, remind me why I love this hobby, why I've loved sports cards literally since 1980. Been doing this, you know, my whole life. And so I think at the end of the day, I like the cards the most, but a close second are the relationships that I've built. My closest friends in my life now, not all of them. I mean, I got friends from throughout my life, but almost like my favorite friends are my hobby friends, because we have the hobby in common. So there's always something to talk about, whether it's, you know, I go over to my one buddy's house probably once every 3 months. I take over my cards. I show him my new cards. Like, we do an in-person show and tell, and we catch up on life. Like, I love that. So it's the cards, it's the people. It's not the conflict, but that just comes with the territory.
Yeah, no, I think obviously the cards are the reason we're all here, but I think there's so many different elements to this hobby. There's so many ways that you could participate. And honestly, I think that's like one of the main beauties of it. You don't have to do it to someone else's mold. You can do it however you want. And there's like a million different ways to do it. And that's one of the things that I love about the hobby the most. There's infinite amount of ways to participate.
100%. You know, that's when I'm set up at a card show and somebody comes to my booth that I've never seen before, or I just don't know. The first question I ask them is, you know, how do you approach the hobby? Because like you said, there's always someone else's approach that might open your eyes and actually influence you to be like, oh, I never thought of that. I love that idea. You know, other people might tell you how they approach it, and you're like, that's for you, not for me, and that's fine too. But I agree, man. There is an infinite amount of ways to approach the hobby, and for better or for worse, a lot of self-appointed, you know, hobby police like to criticize and attack how other people do approach it. And I think in some cases they're onto something, and in other cases they're just looking for something to pick on. But really, if you can be open-minded and understand that you only know what you know, you don't know what everybody else knows, and other people have had different experiences and are walking a different path in life, that their approach might just be what makes the most sense for them, and maybe isn't going to do any damage to you. So let them be. Just let them be a little bit. Do you find it's hard to navigate that?
I think, yeah, especially with like social media culture. I think that a lot of people think, like, they look at the content, I think, and then they're like, oh, I want to do it that way. Or they look at like someone buying a bunch of $5,000 cards. I want to go out and do that. But you don't really see the whole story. You don't see them putting in the work to build up to that level most of the time, where they're going to buy the $20 to $50 cards and they're going to flip them for like 20, 50% profit and do that over and over again. So sometimes people get lost and they want to participate the way creators are participating. I think that, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, like a woman today at the shop brought in a Nolan Ryan rookie, and it looked pretty nice. And I'm like, where'd you get it? And she's like, my dad had it. He just stashed it away for like a while. And it's like, stories like that are crazy, because he just had it in his house, and doing nothing is also an option in participating in the hobby. If you just have your cards that you love and you put them in your display case in your house, you put them in your closet or whatever, and you wait, that's also a way to participate. And this guy probably had his card 10, 15 years ago, and now obviously cards like that have exponentially increased in value. She brings it in, she's going to get it graded. It's probably going to be like a 5 or a 6. And it's like things like that woman might be in the hobby now. She might not, but she might stick around because it's a good experience. And I think that's something that we just want people to have good experiences. We shouldn't necessarily tell them how to do that. We could guide them, but we shouldn't show them, like, we shouldn't tell them do this. Mm-hmm. We should let them kind of figure their way, give them advice and guide them, but we gotta let it happen organically.
Present options, I think, is kind of what you're getting at. Present options to people. And that's what, even as somebody who's been in the hobby as long as I have, I'm still curious as to other people's approaches, because I want to always expand my interest within the hobby. And Chad, it doesn't matter how long you're in the hobby for, you can still find new things to collect, new pathways, new genres. There's so much out there. And I think that's one of the things I like the most about the hobby too, is that it never gets boring and stale, at least for me. But I have a wide interest. I'm not only a basketball collector who only collects, the most modern players. I collect 1888 to 2023, all sports, non-sport, like a bunch of things. So I guess the wider variety you have of interests, the better the experience in your hobby experience will be over a longer period of time, I think.
That's the interesting thing, though. It's like we collect completely different things, and it's like we could still be good friends regardless.
Exactly. So let me ask this: do you have like a personal collection of cards that you are holding long term? Like, do you think I'm holding this forever? Like, I don't ever want to sell it, or are you only buying cards with the intention of selling them within the next year or two for a profit?
I collect also, but I don't like to hold cards for, like, let's say 10 years. I would rather hold a card for like 3 to 5 years and then like switch it out for something else, because the way, like, I really just enjoy like the young players. Like, ever since I was young, I would like only care about whoever was the top tier quarterbacks drafted in that rookie class. Like when Andrew Luck came in 2012 and RG3, I was like watching the games, rooting for the Colts and the Redskins. I wasn't rooting for I was rooting for the Giants too, but I didn't care about like the Bradys, the Peyton Mannings. I cared about like the young quarterbacks. I care about like when Zion's coming in, or when Anthony Bennett was the biggest bust of all time, or whoever's the big chase in Bowman. I care about that guy. It's just kind of the way that I do it. And that's kind of like, it's a parallel to like what we do with Blez, because we do all the new products. It's the stuff that me and my brothers all enjoy the most. And it's the stuff that we know the best. So we could give the customer the best value, the best experience, because we've been doing it our whole lives.
Well, if that's what you like, that's what you should be doing, right? What's going on? I have to ask, because I was following your content. I don't know that I've seen much about this lately, but what's going on with Franz Wagner?
Yeah, like he's a perfect example. I bought so many of his cards for the past like 18 months, and most people think I'm crazy, but it's like, that's what I enjoy. It just so happens that the cost of prospecting has been a little bit higher the past couple of years. So I've done it like a little bit less than, let's say, like 2019, 2018. But I still love to chase the prospects. And Franz Wagner is a guy I think is going to be really good. He's got all the tools. I've been watching him for a long time. He's 6'10". He's a really good shooter. He could drive. He could pick and roll. And I think that a lot of the times, especially in basketball, it takes some guys like 3-4 years to become superstars. When you look at like Giannis, Kawhi, a bunch of guys like that, and then there's like a second level. So I like to buy guys because I think there's a chance that like stuff like that can happen. And honestly, like I don't like to just talk money, but like a lot of people do like to hear it. Like the hobby is money's flying hands all day. I do like to talk about the collecting too. Like Franz is a guy that I'm putting away for the 3 to 5 years, and I'm going to see what happens. But when you talk about like money, Luka was my main moneymaker overall. I would say that a good portion of like the money I have today came from buying Luka singles in 2018. Everything was so cheap. I pretty much put every dollar I made into sports cards, every dollar I had, and I bought a ton of Luka, a ton of other players. And the other thing is too, it's like I'm kind of younger, so I'm still formulating like different ways that I want to collect. You know what I'm like you like you were saying before, there's always ways that collecting evolves, changes. So when I was 22, 23, it was really prevalent to buy cards, send them to PSA and grade as a money thing. And I would put away some cards, but I'm still kind of formulating the best way that I want to collect.
I think that's a reasonable approach, and just you're remaining open-minded. And someone made a comment down here. John says short-term Blez versus long-term Jeremy, because we are kind of opposites in our horizon. I buy for the most part to hold long-term because I just want to own the cards. I enjoy owning them, and you're a more short-term holder. But John's making it's an astute comment. In a way, we are kind of opposite in the way we approach it, but that's okay.
The thing is, I respect the way you do it more. I'd rather do it like you. It's just tough for me. It's just like the way I am as a person. It's like a deep-rooted thing.
I understand. I hear you. Let's say a couple more comments here. Hockey Cards Plus, what's going on? Sebastian. Sean from Victory Investment says, when CBlez danced with his shirt off at that wedding, I immediately went out and bought a 53 Topps Jackie Robinson. That's a really interesting segue.
I love to hear that.
Yeah,
I love that.
That is awesome. Joe says, does CBlez have any thoughts regarding the ultra-modern basketball market? It seems like it has some ground in relation to baseball and football. Has this shifted his prospecting at all? I think he means it seems like it has lost some ground in relation to baseball or football. Has this shifted your prospecting at all?
That's a really good question. And honestly, it has. Like I said, like in 2020, 2021, it was a little bit harder to prospect. And I think now it's becoming right. It's becoming prime to prospect again. I think starting at the national, or not starting at the national, but I have a few guys, especially in basketball, that I have my eyes on. I'm probably going to look to pick up some high-end stuff. But I think that the basketball market overall, especially for modern, has come down the most relative to the other sports. And to me, that's good because now you can go buy it and you could go get it at a better price. And I'm not saying it's good, like it's good for some, bad for others, obviously. But in terms of the question, it's good for buying and good for prospecting because it's been hit the hardest. So I would say that if you want to go in on a first-year basketball guy or a second-year basketball guy that's not the top guy, I think that it's a good time to come in.
Agree. Because the prices are lower. So, it's lower risk. Lower expenditure means lower risk if you're in it for that. Sean says the hobby is big enough for the Jay Lees, the CBlez's, etc. John wants to know, what are your thoughts on sports card radio's involvement in the hobby? You spoke to that a few minutes ago, John, so I'll get you to, if you don't mind, just rewind later. CBlez did give some thoughts on that already. Sports card lessons, Big Ken. Finding your hobby wolf pack makes the hobby a special place. It's always good to have friends, no doubt about it. Corey Carr says, doing nothing is an option for participating in the hobby. That was a good quote. It seems almost funny, but it is true. Sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing and just take a break or whatever. It is a funny quote, but it actually holds some water, I think.
Can I speak to this for a second?
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people put in so much work in like 2021, and they're not going to get the same return that some people did putting in work now, putting in work 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Sometimes sitting truly is the best option. It's like a joke, but it's not.
Yeah, for sure. Corey, we did that. La Schwein, good to see you. John says a diverse portfolio is key. I think that can't argue with that. Sean says, I have seen many times younger collectors that become longer term collectors as they become more stable in life. For many of them, flipping is helping them build stability. I think that's a great point. Maybe if you are, say you're in your late teens, your early to mid 20s, late 20s, and you are flipping your way into some profits so that you can actually build yourself like a hobby business, even if it is being a dealer. I don't need to say even if it's being a dealer. If it is being a dealer, it is a way to help level up. And if you can be good at it. Have you noticed some of your buddies, your contemporaries that in the hobby that have they taken this approach, flip while you're young and build up a stockpile and go from there?
I think this is an approach that is one of the best approaches. You want to flip up and take your profit and either put it in cards or put it in cash. But honestly, I think that you want to flip your way up to put it in cards because then it leaves you a tremendous room of upside. So by that, I mean, let's say you have like 50 cards and you can make let's say you buy a 50 card lot for like 3,000 and you're going to end up flipping it, piecing it out all one by one, and you sell all 50 cards for 3,500. So you have $500 profit. And then if you take that 500 and you go to, let's say, Optic Football and you buy a Kenny Pickett auto and you grade it, giving you even more upside, it's like now you're into a Kenny Pickett auto graded for 500, which you're actually into it for free because that's your profit on the deal. So I see a lot of people take that strategy where they try to flip and then they'll put the money that they made flipping into like a card that has a ton of room and a ton of upside. And I've seen a ton of people my age just keep working their way up, leveling up. But I honestly think it's better to put it into cards than into cash. I don't think it makes sense to put it into cash because cash, as we know, is a depreciating asset, I think. I don't think. I know it is. It goes down. So I like to put the money in something that has an upside and in a player that I think could become something. So I would say when you flip up your money, you want to put it into a card that has room to grow.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Brent says he's smart with the younger players. You can't hold very long. Eventually, the Pareto principle will take them to zero. Yeah, some of those you have to get out quick. He goes on to say, I love the way anyone participates in the hobby. There are no rules, many games within the meta game. I agree with Brent there, and we've said it already tonight, Chad, but there's so many ways to do this hobby, but there are also so many people waiting to attack and criticize you for doing it your way. And I just sometimes wonder, why don't those people just focus on themselves and just work on their own? Like, every minute you spend criticizing somebody else and focusing your time and attention on somebody else, you're taking away from leveling up your own game. So do you have any insight at all into like why you find that people are so quick? Like, what is it about this hobby that makes people so quick to look for reasons to attack others?
Well, the one thing that I think, and this goes for just like content in general, because obviously these people are creators, because what other way would we all know about it? But I think that there needs to be both sides of the coin. It's like when you look at it from a perspective of a creator, when nobody's talking about something, it means there's room for like views, let's say, an opportunity to like do better. So you have people in cards that most people talk hobby positivity and they all kind of talk the same thing. So then there's an avenue of people that want to consume other content. And I think that people as a creator think that, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to make content to appeal to those people. So I think that's kind of like, you see what I'm saying a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of like some content creators are being pushed into that type of content, which is the attack type content, I guess, because that's what you're saying. That's where they think they're going to get the most views. Whereas, going on and showing your mail days or doing interviews with people like I do a lot of, or, getting into the nitty gritty on an obscure set from the 1940s or 30s or 60s that very few people know about, you're not going to get a lot of views on that because there's no drama there. I think it comes down to drama a lot of the time, and drama does sell. It does get the clicks, and I think there is a function for that. There is a use for that type of content when it is fair. When it is fair and it is being looked at objectively, logically, and when the assumptions are kept to a minimum, I think. But that's just not the case. That's not the case right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's tough. People should be a little bit more hands off and worry about themselves. I definitely agree with you on that.
I think they'd be better off. I think a lot of people would be better off if they just focused, instead of focusing on other people, focus on what you're doing a lot of the time. And I think you'll find that you probably have a better experience overall, but maybe not. Some people are just born to be that way, I guess. Carlos wants to know, Chad, what are your thoughts on Victor Wembanyama?
I want to see more. I would say everyone's hyping him up to be the best player in the league. I want to see more. I definitely think a guy of his size and his skill hasn't been seen before. So I think he has upside that like no one else has, and that you can't tell from the second summer league game or whatever, the first one. You really can't tell. That's not enough play. And the French league, I don't know much about it, so it's tough to compare it to American basketball. I just want to see like a body of work of 10 to 20 regular season games and see how he does. But I think that the players are speaking about him in a way that they rarely do. And if you notice that, they're saying things about him that you don't really hear. So I think that's a good sign that he's probably going to be like a really good player right away. But I want to see, does he have a chance to be like the best player, or is he just going to be like a superstar type guy?
Yeah. It's funny. His cards sell for so much. He plays that first summer league game and all of a sudden he's a bust. Who knew if he had a stomachache that day, or, he had some, like, anything can happen to impact a player's game on any given night. I think you made the smartest comment in that you need to see more. You're not going to give a scouting report based on one or two games. Michael F says, I can't wait to see CBlez live and up close. That's always a treat. CBlez is a treat live and up close, for sure.
I assume he's talking about the National.
I assume too. I assume as well. Sean says, hockey will always be great. Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid are always top bets. CBlez, are you aware of Connor Bedard?
I'm aware, yes.
Any thoughts about picking up any of his cards when they start to come out?
I do like buying the young guns, but I heard that they're not like the top rookie card anymore.
Well, they never really were. Maybe not never, but no, they're like the Prism base rookie for a player. They're the Topps Update rookie, or I shouldn't get into it. I should retract any baseball comment. I don't know enough about the products, but it's the common card. It's not rare by any means.
What's good? Like SB Authentic and the Cup, pretty much?
Yep. Right there. Those two.
It's the RPAs from those.
Yeah, you get RPAs in the Cup. In SB Authentic, you get the SB Authentic Future Watch auto patches. So they're parallels. They're not true RCs, but to me, a rookie year patch auto is almost as good as a rookie card. So I think they're great.
I like to rip hockey. I'll definitely be ripping some next year. Because the products for hockey have been around for so long. Like I used to rip Artifacts. I used to rip regular Upper Deck. I used to rip SB Authentic, obviously. I didn't really do the Cup because it was too much. But I ripped a ton of hockey, more like when I was younger. Because in 05, 06, I think it was a dual rookie class with Crosby and Ovechkin.
Yep.
But I did that year, and then I did hockey for a few years after that. And I think I'll probably get back in for Bedard.
Nice. Well, let's see how it goes. I'm excited for his cards to start coming out and just seeing what it does to the overall hobby. Darren says, what up? Finally catch you. Yeah, it's been a long time, Darren. Been keeping up on the pod, though. Great continued work, my friend. Thank you very much, Darren. Good to see you. John says, this hobby equals it's my way or the highway. And there are so many people there's so many. I get DMs all the time from people who with that sort of sentiment, and oftentimes, not to give away my trick or my secret, I'll just say thumbs up and move along, because I just can't. Some people you just can't reason with, unfortunately. But it is a lot of people do take that attitude. John Mosaic Mind says, "Is the core of the hobby collecting or dealing?" I think that's
Not
a
even
really
close. It's not even close. Collecting.
well. No collecting, there's no dealing.
Collecting is the most important thing in all of this by far.
I agree. You've heard the saying that like every card needs a final home. It needs a collector to want to own it for a card to really have value. Otherwise, it's a game of hot potato. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just think that even when you look at the people who are investing, it's like you want to buy the cards that are collector type cards because you want to put it in the hands of a collector. So I think that the collectors are by far the most important. There's a million reasons why, but the collectors are the backbone of the hobby by a long shot. I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. The hobby is built on collecting, but then John here says the core of the hobby is card companies making a profit in the end. I don't think that's the core though, John. I think that's the reality. I think that is the reality. They are profit driven. That there's no doubt about it. But if their card companies aren't going to be able to make a profit, there are collectors and there are dealers and there are flippers. There are so many different cogs in the overall hobby machine, and there's been more kind of created in the last few years, just with the uprise of the hobby and content and the pandemic, that the card companies are one of those cogs in the hobby machine, but they're not the only one. But John is not wrong. If you just take out core, my opinion, the card companies are all about making a profit. There is no doubt about that. Mosaic says that's true. Dealing or collecting, we purchase their products. Very true. Michael F says it's financial. Look at any investment niche. They all blow up on gains or losses. No different. Anything that costs money that fluctuates will get this treatment. Here's a comment, Chad, on Wembanyama. Tyson says he doesn't look very athletic. He doesn't even jump off the ground when he dunks. Small man flying through the air looks way cooler. Yeah, I agree with that. What do you think about Wembanyama? Just and his stature. Like, he doesn't need to jump to dunk. Like, that's crazy.
I think he's talking about the collectability, saying that young guy or smaller guys usually sell better and they're usually more collectible. And he's right. Usually the big guy in the history of the hobby gets disrespected a ton. If you look at Embiid, you look at Jokic, their card prices don't sell near what a guy like Ja does or Luka or players. And also when you take into account market cap, which a lot of people don't. And by that, I mean, when you look at Embiid and Jokic, they were in 15, 16. They didn't print near the amount of cards that they did today. So when you look at today, they have way more cards. And like let's say an NTRPA of Ja sells for like 25 and an Embiid sells for less to begin with. But a point that I'm making is a lot of the times people get lost in, like, it's hard to explain, but they just printed less back in the day. So if the same card sells for 500 of a player from back in the day, it's actually selling for a ton less, because like a silver Prism 10 of Nikola Jokic is like 2K, and Luka's like probably like 1,500, like 1,200. But it's like Luka actually sells for a ton more, even though he goes for less, because there's so many more on the market. So what I'm saying is, a lot of the players, especially in the last like 4 or 5 years, there's way more money in these players than the players from like 10 years ago and so on.
Right.
So I think that you agree?
Well, yeah, I was like, I think what you're saying is if you were just add up all the money that is invested into the Jokic Prism silvers versus the Doncic Prism silvers, even though Jokic sells for more, there's more money overall in the Doncic cards.
Yeah, I said it the wrong way. There's more money in it. But basically, it's kind of weird the way it works. It's like, in my opinion, people should be taking pop counts more into a factor when it's such a drastic case like that. Jokic should be selling for way more if he was an equal talent than the modern guys. But speaking to this, I think that overall, the fact that Wemby's a big, it's actually not going to hurt him in this case, but it does hurt a lot of other bigs. But I think Wemby coming in with so much hype, and people think he's going to be one of the best players ever. So I think that if he becomes a top 5 player in the NBA, I think he'll be fine. I don't think the big man stigma will hurt him because he's going to be so high out of the gate.
From a investing perspective, I think the problem is that it's already built in, or it's going to be already built in, that he'll be a top 5 player. So it's going to be hard to be profitable in the short term, I think, on Wembanyama cards, because they're already selling as if it's all happened, it seems like. Philly Joe says positivity is, hey, congrats on your pickups. Negativity is, hey, your cards stink. You're an idiot. Yeah, it's easy to say the negative things over behind your keyboard for sure. Cards AH, I think there is a lot of hate lately for the influencer and content creators, which I think stems from being active during the COVID boom. Goes on to say, encouraging people and trying to grow the hobby during that time does not, in my opinion, make them complicit in anything nefarious. I completely agree with that. Cards AH. I think a lot of people just need others to, they just need somebody to blame for their own mindset at any given time, unfortunately. Ben Diamond says, I'd rather pay more for a known commodity than a prospect. That's my lane. That's mine too. And nothing at all wrong with that. Darren says, I think it's part collect to deal and part deal to collect, the yin and the yang. It's an interesting way to look at it. That does make sense to me. Make sense to you as well?
I agree with that.
Carlos says, tell us your thoughts on Fanatics essentially taking over most or all aspects of the hobby. Is it good or bad? Is it a monopoly? Why don't you go first, Chad? I'll come up after.
I think it's going to be good, but I think we also have to wait and see more, like the Wembanyama situation. But I think that they've already done some good things that I like the MVP buyback program I thought was great. I think they're making a lot of good additions to certain Topps products for baseball. But it's going to be tough. I mean, we got to see more of what happens. Basketball, football right now, Panini is still making the cards. And I think the fact, like Fanatics events, speaking to that, I think that could be game changing to the card show in sports cards, because you see they're tied in with the leagues. The players have a piece of the pie now, and I think that's going to really incentivize them to want to do more. I think you could see athletes come into these card shows, and I think they're going to be more involved in the hobby, and I think that a lot of people are going to gravitate towards that and want to come in the hobby, because I think Fanatics is going to change certain things that will make it appealing to a bigger audience. And I think we have a lot of people in the hobby now that are diehards that have been here for a long time. And I think we need to do a better job of appealing to the casual sports fan out there. And I think that's something that Fanatics should be able to do very well. And I hope that they get it done, because I want to see the hobby grow and I want to see it become a better place. And I think that the fact that they're doing so much in the sports landscape already, I think it's a big leg up for the hobby. If you look at like the other companies, Panini, Topps, Upper Deck, Fanatics is the biggest in sports. So they have the biggest advantage to try to convert people who are sports fans to try to be card collectors. And I think that's going to be the most pivotal thing of the next 5 to 10 years, converting those people into becoming sports card collectors.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fanatics does have the best shot at that conversion from fan to collector to hobbyist. But I'm going to address this monopoly part that Carlos puts at the end of this question, because I don't think a lot of people know what a monopoly is, because we hear this term getting thrown out everywhere in the hobby. But Fanatics is not a monopoly. Fanatics, the only thing they have a monopoly on is the same monopoly that we've been used to for the past 15 years, which is NBA and NFL cards, and eventually MLB cards as well. That's the only thing they have a monopoly.
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
What do you mean?
They have MLB and they're getting.
Sorry. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So okay. Thank you for that. So all they have a monopoly on is the ability to produce cards. The fact that they have an auction house, they have a live shopping platform, people are speculating they're going to have a grading company, they have a pricing tool, they have an event company now. These are all different businesses in different areas that all have competition. Not one thing I just mentioned doesn't have competition. There's several live shopping platforms, several grading companies if they're going to acquire one, other pricing and data tools, tons of auction houses, there's always going to be other card shows no matter what Fanatics does. So they have competition in all of these other areas. So Fanatics is not a monopoly. They are not becoming a monopoly. The correct word that people need to really use if they want to actually speak about it properly is conglomerate. Fanatics is a conglomerate in the sports card memorabilia, betting, apparel, all the autograph. They're a conglomerate. They are not a monopoly. And listen, it's just semantics, I guess. But if you want to use the right word, the word is conglomerate. It is simply just not monopoly. Okay. Do you have any follow up on that, Chad?
I just want to say that thank you, and I appreciate that explanation because I didn't clearly understand the whole situation. And I think you just cleared it up, so I appreciate that.
Okay, well, yeah, you are more than welcome. Okay, so with that, Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect Vintage Breaks has joined us for the Vintage Spotlight, Chad. So let's bring Leighton on for about 10 minutes and get his thoughts on things. Leighton Sheldon, who comes on the show every Saturday for the Vintage Spotlight, a great sponsor of Sports Cards Live. Leighton, do you know Chad? Have you guys met?
I don't know if we've met in person, but I think we've connected online.
Well, nice to talk to you face to face.
And you guys will see each other at the National. Leighton, let's hear from you. First of all, I mean, man, I'm following your reels on Instagram. Lots of great stuff. What is going on right now? How excited are you for next week in the National? And where are you at right now, buddy?
Oh, listen, I can taste Bobby Chin's. I can taste Gibson's. Listen, I'm really excited. I am going to miss my son, who's 8 years old, Crosby. Hopefully in the next couple of years, he will make it to a national. I'm really excited. I think that most people are excited about the national. And, listen, there's a lot going on these days, right, about social media, just being positive. And listen, prices are down. Sure, prices aren't down on every single card. And the thing is, there's so much to be excited about. So even if you're going to the National simply as an attendee and you're going there, you're going to drink, a Sprite or a Coke, you can get a pretzel, you're just going to walk around, you're not going to buy anything. It's still such a wonderful experience. So really looking forward to the convention.
And do you have anything big planned, anything you want to let the audience know you have planned at your booth or your booths at the National? And before you answer, Chad, I did ask you if you could come up with a question for Leighton that is related to vintage, which isn't your jam, but maybe you have a question. So after he answers, we'll get you to tee that one up.
Yeah, please. Looking forward to it, Chad. So next Saturday, our main event for Vintage Breaks of the National, we've teamed up with Fanatics. And we are one of their sellers on their new app. And we are offering a 1967 Topps Baseball Second Series rack pack in conjunction with Fanatics on their new app. And we plan to open it with Jeff Wilson from Sports Card Investor next Saturday at 3 o'clock, live from the National Sports Collectors Convention. And for those that don't know, the second series of 1967 Topps Baseball is also known as the Mickey Mantle Series. There are 36 chances at Mickey Mantle in the pack, 36 cards, and we're hoping to sell it out and open it next Saturday night or next Saturday afternoon. Very excited.
That sounds pretty cool. And now that you inform us that you are doing this with Jeff Wilson, Sports Card Investor, there will be tons of content out there on this for people to see this rack pack being open. So good to hear, man. Good luck with that. And I look forward to seeing you at the National in just a few days. Chad, anything you got to ask Leighton?
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Leighton. My question was, it's regarding taking cards out. I think that I was thinking of a strategy where I would buy like PSA 3s, 4s, 5s and try to crack them out, send them to SGC and see, because the SGC grade value or whatever they charge for grading, I don't think it goes up if the card's like worth more. I know PSA does. So I was thinking I wanted to buy a ton of like Beckett and PSA like low grade vintage and crack it out and send it to SGC. Do you think there's an opportunity there?
Great question, Chad. I appreciate the opportunity, of course, to be on and answer it. So first thing is to clarify, SGC, I believe, has a special on football cards at the moment where they're not upcharging, I believe. I don't know if they changed that special, but SGC still does charge on value. So, for example, I just submitted a 33 Gaudy Ruth to them, and through their system, I forgot the declared value. It was like $10,000 or $15,000, whatever it is. You can't submit it for $15. The system won't allow you. So I don't know that they charge the same structure as far as when cards, start to cross 1,000, 2,000, etc. But I can tell you firsthand, you're not able to, grade a Gaudy Beirut for $9. It does tier up as the value goes up.
But do you think that, like, if you get like a $20,000 PSA card, they're going to charge you like $1,500. Do you think for SGC they're going to charge you like an exorbitant amount potentially, or is it going to be like whatever the 2 day is?
I don't want to misquote Chad. It's a great question. I think 20,000 is going to be like $500 or $1,000. So it might not be 1,500, but it's not going to be pennies. It's not going to be $9.
I appreciate the answer. Can I ask like another one or?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Well, I also want to answer your question about converting low grade from PSA or Beckett over to SGC, because I thought it was a really good question.
Okay, yeah.
So the standards, although they're similar, they are different across the respective grading companies. So you ask a wonderful question. I think it's too hard to give you a broad answer, but if I could drill down, yes, it is possible, Chad, that you could go to the National, I'm making it up, and buy a 33 Gaudy Tris Speaker and a PSA 2 or 3. And you're right. There's a chance that SGC might look at it on their scale, and maybe they're going to say it's a 3 or a 4. But I want to caution the viewers who are watching. Just because it's going to grade higher, as you said, Chad, consider the grading cost to take it from one holder to the other. Consider your risk, because nothing's guaranteed. And then also consider the selling price. Just because, and you know this, Chad, better than most who are watching the show tonight, just because you get a 4 with one respective company versus a 3 with another, that doesn't always ensure it's going to sell for what you need it to sell for to be profitable.
I appreciate the answer. No, I was kind of jumping ahead, so I'm sorry for doing that.
Oh, good.
No problem at all, Chad. Anything you want to ask him? Because now's the time. And it's all good.
What do you think for vintage? Like, is SGC the top, or is PS like? What's the ranking and grading?
Wow, you're really sticking it to me. So I don't know if my friends from both companies are watching. I'll do my best to answer it accurately as well as diplomatically, Chad. So you're asking me if I had a vintage card, who I would grade it with?
No, I'm more saying like, which company. What are they special? Like, is one baseball? Is one basketball?
Sure.
Like, is one like certain older years versus others?
So the thing is that, PSA is still clearly the biggest grader, right? By volume, by the total number of submissions, by their market, cap, so on and so forth. However, SGC has a great reputation in vintage, specifically baseball, and stuff from the turn of the century, like you're talking T206s. Forget about value, Chad. Great question. There's a lot of folks, once again, putting aside the value, that really enjoy. They like the way that a T206 card looks in an SGC holder because it's a white card against a black background. And I'm not a design guy, but I've seen them, and they kind of pop in the holder. Versus when you look at a T206, for example, and a PSA holder, I can see why, once again, value aside, you might prefer the way it looks in a SGC black bordered holder versus PSA, for example.
Yeah, so I guess with modern it's similar. It's case by case, like whatever you like. If you're collecting, it's whatever you like.
Yeah, and listen, if there's a particular advantage, meaning financial, to grade one versus the other, as well as I do, there's still some people who are hard line like a respective company, and they're not going to change. So there's that arbitrage that people always talk about that might be available at the National, right? Someone only wanted to grade with Beckett, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't understand why this card's not the PSA holder. And then, you look at the numbers, you're like, look at the card again, you look back at the numbers, you're like, you know what, I'm going to take a shot. I'll buy the card.
Because the thing in modern, I'm sure as you know, but I'm just relating it. It's like cracking it's people do it all the time. Go from Beckett to PSA, SGC to PSA. They're more trying to do it for like a financial thing, I would say, in the modern day. And I think the older cards, people are trying to do it for like looks. But you see, it's a very common thing that people are trying to crack out to make a spread on a 0.5 difference grade or something like that.
I think that I'm very well aware of it. I think that used to be a lot more prevalent in vintage. It still happens, but as they've raised the grading fees, as you brought up, a little bit ago, it's become more challenging to go out and take said vintage card that's worth $10,000 or $5,000, and just because it's worth the next grade, you're going to have to pay a substantial amount of money in grading fees. And remember, it's not guaranteed. So it's still going on out there, and it'll still be done, next week at the National. It just, I don't believe it's as easy to do for financial gain as it used to be.
I mean, me personally, I don't think a card should ever be out of the case that it's in first. I think that like cracking shouldn't be a thing, me personally, but I know that people do it. So I was just curious, and I appreciate you answering the question.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah, great questions, Chad. Leighton, thank you for stopping by. We'll see you in a few days at the National in Rosemont, Illinois, which a lot of people just call Chicago, and that's just more convenient and easier.
Yeah, listen, make sure you bring your walking shoes. It's going to be a great convention. I'm looking forward to seeing both of you next week.
Thanks, Leighton. Take care, bud.
See you next week.
All right, Chad, let's get right back into the comments because we have lots of them. Michael F says that all love, he'll chat with you there. Michael F will chat with you. I think he's talking to you. The professor, good evening. Good to see you. Adam Crawford says, Young Guns are great if you buy the rare parallels, the exclusives, the high gloss, and there are more. That's a great point, actually, Chad. I don't collect Young Guns. I don't invest in Young Guns. I just don't really want to hold a card that, that there's tens and tens of thousands of outside of vintage. That's how I'm rolling. So, but there are some really good parallels that are rare and highly pursued. So a good option.
I appreciate that answer, Adam. That makes sense. Go for the rare ones.
Exactly. K-Sits Reed says the hobby is alive. It is, especially tonight. Professor says, based on your comments, Jeremy, and that of Josh, I am learning more about Synergy from Upper Deck, a really nice product. John says Ultimate, Premier, Exquisite are also great Upper Deck premium brands. We have Caton in the room, says, yeah, without collecting, there's no dealing. Exactly. Michael F says, watch the flippers run straight to hockey with the hype next year. That is no doubt going to happen. No doubt. Zach says, you could say this entire world and society is about making a profit.
That's a good point.
It's so true. So when somebody attacks somebody else for trying to make some money, it's like, well, you're making money too. Like but there are ways to make money that I think in the hobby that are looked at more favorably than others, especially, if you're talking about, doing things that are just wrong, fraudulent, misleading, the whole, shill bidding, trimming, all these things that people that are not cool. But Zach makes a good point there, Chad. Mosaic Mind.
I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Is that okay?
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll hold it down. I will hold down the fort for sure. Mosaic Mind says the collectors are everything in this hobby. They are the foundation. Certainly agree with you on that, Mosaic. Michael F says CBlez is spitting truth. Look at production in early 2000 and parallels compared to today. No doubt about that for sure. Joe Perot will have to wait for CBlez to get back for that one. John says McDavid was priced in to win 4 Stanley Cups in 2016. John, you are right. You are right. And but he's not alone, right? All prospects that are highly touted have all this baked into them right away before they even step foot on the court, the ice, the field. They already have these things built right into their values. So no doubt here. Chad, John just said McDavid was priced in to win 4 Stanley Cups in his card back in 2016, and that just ties into what we were saying about Wembanyama earlier, where it's already priced in that he's going to be a top 5 basketball player of all time. So we had a question back here from Joe. Chad, he wants to know what are your thoughts on Shohei Ohtani? What has he meant to baseball and the hobby in general?
Massive for the hobby, and I think that he is getting not enough hype. I think he needs more hype from like the national media, because I honestly think he's the best player of all time. I know you got to do it for like a length of time, but I like to go based on like talent and when you're at your peak. And I think that Ohtani, he's obviously one of the best players ever, and he's brought in a ton of new people to the hobby. I remember back in 2018, we were breaking Bowman, which is the product that he was originally in. And a lot of our customers said that they came into the hobby because they were chasing Ohtani. And that's a common thing that happens when you have such a big prospect. It's going to happen again this year with Wemby and with Bedard. Both of those guys are going to bring people back in. There's certain guys out there that probably only collected for Ovechkin Crosby's year. Yeah. They probably came back for McDavid, and now they're probably going to come back for Bedard. And the same thing happens in the other sports from what I've seen. And Ohtani was definitely a player that was transcendent to not only baseball, but card collecting too, because I think you're going to see a lot of players doing pitching and hitting going forward, because when you look at basketball, a guy like Steph Curry, he started taking threes more than anyone else, and he was doing it at a high clip. And then you see all these kids coming in, and now the whole league shoots threes. So I think Ohtani, a lot of the kids seeing him play today are going to want to be like him, and they're going to start trying to do both. So I think he's going to have, even when he's not playing in the future, I think Ohtani's going to have a massive impact on baseball in general, and he's already had a massive impact on the whole hobby.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Mark Santucci says players from 10 years ago might not be playing, but the players that are playing today have more interest. I think that's a true statement that, it's why so many people, like yourself included, are drawn to the current players, the young players, because you like the opportunity to pick the guy who becomes a major superstar, and they're playing today. You can follow them day to day. The retired guys, their records are written. It's done. But it depends where your nostalgia lies. Probably sometime, and not in all cases, but sometimes how old you are. A lot of people, even young guys, like to learn the history, go back and collect older cards. And some guys just want to collect the players that they can go watch playing today. I think both approaches are fine.
I have a question for you. So Bedard's coming in. How do you go about like collecting a guy like Bedard?
I don't.
Slash like the past few years, do you touch the new guys at all?
Not really. I mean, very, very little. I've learned and seen it. I've just seen it over and over again, Chad, that if it's like the first Connor Bedard Young Guns that hits eBay, for example, will probably be among the most expensive Connor Bedard Young Guns ever sold. They only tend to come down from there. It's just the nature of the hobby, because people are going to move on to the next player eventually. So, I mean, I just stay away. Now, with Connor McDavid, I stayed away. That ended up hurting me in the end, because I had to spend more money to get his cards once I realized that he was the real deal, and I wanted some of his cards in my collection. So it doesn't always work. But it doesn't always work, I should say, from a financial perspective. But that's okay. I sleep better at night knowing that the cards that I'm sitting on are going to more or less move with the economy versus what somebody does on the court or behind a microphone on any given day.
So you you want to see greatness. And so if I went to your house right now, I wouldn't see like any players that aren't like at least all-stars for like 5 years.
Very few. I have a couple Jake Ottinger cards, and I have a couple Jason Robertson cards. Other than that, two Dallas Stars players that I like. But
is Robertson, I think I heard when I was watching the game once, he's like one of the only Filipino players. Is he?
He looks like he has some Asian
He's
influence
Asian.
in him. I don't know what country exactly, but that doesn't surprise me that he has some percent Asian in him.
He's good. He's really good.
He's good, yeah. So I have a couple cards of him, a couple of Ottingers, but that's like it. Otherwise, it's pretty much Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, Gretzky, and a few. I've got like 40 player collections, so I've got across all sports. So I have a bunch, but most of them are done. Like they're either their careers are over or they are like guaranteed Hall of Famers. All right, let's keep on going here. Lots of great comments. I want to thank the chat for that. Mosaic Mind says, do grading companies, especially PSA, have too much influence on the levers that animate the hobby? Are cards valued more than grades and slabs, or vice versa? That's a big question that could have a long answer. Chad, I'll throw out my thoughts really quickly, which are quite simply that I call it the PSA spell that a lot of the hobby is under, and it's just based on the brand. It's not based on the quality of the service, the quality of the slab. It's simply based on the quality of building that brand over 30 or so years. So, but I think more people now are moving towards buying a card that they like versus, just a card in a slab that says PSA 7. A lot of people would rather have a 5 than a 7 in some case, like a specific 5 over a specific 7, because the 5 is a nicer card than the 7. So those are my thoughts. I'll leave those there. What about you, Chad? Anything to add on?
I don't understand the question.
Then let's let him clarify and go on, because it was a tough one to understand. I agree. Paul Rath, welcome to the show, says, just trying to learn here. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate having you, Paul. Welcome to Sports Cards Live tonight. Cobra Diamond says, Fanatics, it is a monopoly, but they will wedge out some local card shops. As you know, I disagree. It is not. They are not a monopoly. Will they wedge out some local card shops? I think so, because they're going to be able to instill standards upon card shops that they sell to, and if those card shops don't meet their standards, they might cut them off, because they don't want that atmosphere representing the way they want their product and maybe even the greater hobby to appear. What do you think?
That's not wedging out, though. That's saying that we want certain standards, and if it's not up to these standards, it's not good enough. So that's more on the shop than Fanatics, in my opinion. I think that's a good thing. If the shop isn't on the standards, we don't want it anyway.
I think you're right. And I think you're right on what you just said there. I think that it will cause some attrition, because some of these old school shop owners just won't be able to get their shop cleaned up in time, because these shops have been accumulating piles and piles of product and dust for decades at this point. So we'll see. But it would be nice. It would be nice if those guys could adapt as well. We'll see. Stuke says, will Fanatics at a Fanatics show dictate what products dealers can sell? I think they probably would have that power if they wanted to exercise. I don't think it would be a good move, but I think they could probably do it. Will they? I don't think so, but I don't know. It depends how they organize and run these things. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chad?
In my opinion, they're going to want as much stuff to sell as possible of everything. So I don't think limiting it would really be a great idea.
Yeah, there's some comments coming up that'll allow us to even expand further. Mosaic Mind says, if Fanatics owns all of those assets that profoundly affect the hobby, they are going to ruin it, I fear. What are the ultimate goals of the investors behind Fanatics? That last question is funny, because the answer is obvious. The ultimate goals of the investors behind Fanatics is to make money. That's like the moment Fanatics IPOs or collectors IPOs I don't believe is good for the hobby, because then it's all about quarterly earnings and catering to the investor, not the customer. Even though maybe Fanatics will be better than that, and they will cater to the customer and hope that that will, in the long term, provide value to the investor. But the IPO in and of itself is a liquidity event for the early investors, and then depends which ones stay on and continue the original vision. That it just remains to be seen. But will they ruin it? I don't know. It really depends too, Chad. I think on their horizon, are they looking for a long-term stay in the hobby or a short-term stay? I think they're looking long-term. I
just think that it's a great question, but I think that the term ruin the hobby, like, I really don't know what that means, because if we all participate in the hobby in a different way, we all can't have it ruined or be better in the same way. So I think that the question doesn't make sense. What are they going to ruin and how, based on the way that you collect? It's like a general question, but like, I don't understand what that question means, because you can participate in the hobby any way you want. You don't have to. They're going to be heavily involved in the newer product, I think, and then they're going to have an auction house, Fanatics events. You don't have to participate in that angle of the hobby if you don't want to. So it's like we don't need a negative attitude going forward. I think everyone should just participate the way that they want. And if we think they're going to ruin it, then usually when you think something, it ends up happening. So it's worth thinking the positive instead of the negative. That's just my thoughts.
I agree. I will add that I think the only thing that Fanatics actually has the power to, quote unquote, ruin are the sports cards that have yet to come out in the future, because they have no power over the first 140 years of hobby content. And I mean card content, not video or Instagram. I mean the actual content that we're collecting, the cardboard itself. They have no power over that. Now, you might say, yeah, but they're going to have Fanatics events and a grading company and an auction house and a pricing tool. Maybe. Well, sure. But those all have competition. Fanatics events will not be the only card shows. You're still going to have your local shows, your monthly shows, your regional shows. They're not going to be the only card show in town. So they're not going to have any control over vintage cards. Now, if they have a grading company, there will be competing grading companies. So they're not going to be the only company that can grade a vintage card anymore. And let's face it, I got to think 80% of vintage cards that are grade worthy have already been graded. Maybe more. Maybe it's 90% have been graded already, so that are worthy of it. So I don't think Fanatics has the power to ruin the hobby unless you let them ruin it for you. And it's going to be up to everybody individually to let them ruin it for you. Or the only thing, your only involvement in the hobby is the next product to come out in the one app, are the future products, because you don't go back in time. A lot of us go back in time. And for us, Fanatics has no impact on our day-to-day collecting. Very little. Hopefully they will have a positive. Hopefully the Fanatics events will be wonderful. Hopefully they buy or create a grading company that can fix some of the problems that the current grading companies have. Hopefully, if they live shopping, they've added some new regulations to live shopping. How many cameras you need? No random stuff. I mean, these are things that I think are probably good to protect and to actually, ensure that live shopping and group breaking can survive. But then again, companies that don't fall under their jurisdiction will continue doing what they're doing and be competition. So it's not going to be a monopoly that way either.
I mean, if you take a person like you, this is a perfect example. You don't do much with the new products. You can't. It's either going to stay the same, your collecting experience, or it's going to be better. There's no other options. So it's like, you're a perfect example of someone that it's not going to really change much if you don't want it to.
Exactly. Ben Diamond says, I think the profit incentive will lead them to develop new and better cards that blow away anything Panini made. If not, who's going to pay up for them? Goes on to say, if the product sucks, I ain't paying for it. And they have had the license for 20 years, more incentive not to mess around and gouge us to death in year one. I think I want that to be right, because they have to go in with a long-term vision, Fanatics, and not a short-term vision. Like right now, you have to think Panini is a very short-term thinker because they're about to lose their licenses, right? Topps retained it under new ownership for baseball. Upper Deck is just clear of Fanatics altogether, it seems. So I agree with Ben here that they also have league ownership and partnership investment. So I don't think they're going to mess it up right away. I mean, I think they're going to be better run than that. I said recently, and I put it out on a reel, that Fanatics is the kind of company I believe that they will fail. They will not like go out of business fail, but they will have little hiccups here and there, little small failures, but they will fail fast because a good company, a company under good leadership, they fail fast. Okay, that didn't work. Switch, pivot, adapt, and try again. You don't have success without failure, and I don't think that Fanatics is going to be immune to that when it comes to collectibles and sports cards. And it just depends on how they respond to the hiccups that they have along the way.
I agree. And I think Ben's making a really good point. Fanatics is in it for the long haul, as you could see with, I think they said it's like a 15, 20-year thing where they have the license. So I think that they want things to be good in year 3 to year 20. It's not just about the now. It's more of a total sum game. So I think that Ben's making a really good point that they're going to try to keep it to where it's an elevated experience on all fronts, not for just now, but for the future.
Well, here, Hobby Champ says, Fanatics owning a third-party grading company makes 0 sense. There's a reason they are called third-party grading. It would be FPG if they have their own first-person grading, I'm thinking, and that's a conflict of interest. No one would sub with them. I wonder if no one would sub with them. I wonder. But time will definitely tell. And I just wonder, not saying one way or the other. Triple V says, it blows my mind that anybody would want things to stay the way they are today, especially when dissecting Panini's QC, product saturation, and non-game worn patches and redemption ineptitude. Fair enough, I guess. Anything to say to that, Chad?
I mean, a lot of this stuff isn't as easy as people think it is. I'll just say that. When you're producing more and more cards and you're getting more autographs that are supposed to be in your products, and it ultimately comes down to the player, and it's the matter of, are they going to sign the cards or not? And you have these players who are making so much money, especially the top ones, which are the players that everybody wants their autographs. And the fact that they're making so much more money than they used to, I think that it may make it a little bit tougher to get them. So I think that a lot of this stuff, it's just not as easy as people think.
Fair, and I would tend to agree. I'm going to do a couple more Fanatics comments. I just want to get off the Fanatics topic and move on to something that's more about Blez. Mosaic, if Fanatics decide that cards themselves are undervalued, they'll raise prices. Why wouldn't they? There's higher profits to be made by pricing out lower income hobbyists. Investment follows the money. Yeah, I think, that's kind of an easy thing to think. But if you are really thinking long term, you need to bring in that lower socioeconomic demographic, because those kids end up getting jobs, making money, 25, 30 years down the road. And if Fanatics really wants to grow this, they have to be thinking long term. And so I don't know that I agree that that's what they would do, just raise the prices, because it's also going to upset a lot of people along the way. So I don't know that I buy that. Actually, I don't think that's going to happen. Ben says, my opinion is there's more money to be made if you make the product more accessible. That's exactly what I'm saying, not less. But he says he could be wrong. Yeah, we could be wrong, Ben, but I don't think we are. I think that's the way to go. John says, no Nathan McKinnon love. Yeah, I like Nate McKinnon too, John. And same to you, Mike. Yeah, McKinnon's a good player as well. Okay, I'm lots of Fanatics talk, but I'm just going to skip by the rest of it now, Chad, and just talk more about you. I titled this episode "Being CBlez" because I knew it was going to be a big hodgepodge of topics, so that's all I could come up with for a title. But let's talk about a bit about your transition, or your kind of trending in your content towards more of the gambling, the betting, sharing your tickets, showing your actual tickets from the sports desks, and talk about that. What is it? How are you doing with gambling? Is it something with sports gambling? Is something that you plan to spend a lot of time on? You're going to go back towards cards. Have you reduced your activity with cards to spend more time on gambling?
Number one, I haven't reduced my activity with cards, but I'm just showing more of what I do betting. I've been betting for a long time. I would say like probably about 10 years. And I think that, I mean, I love making content as as an additional thing. I think as people, we love multiple things. I love most things that have to do with sports. So like, it's not just cards for me. It's betting. It's watching the games. It's like following up with the teams and seeing what's happening. So I would say that, yeah, I've made a bunch of sports betting videos, but I think that I'm also going to continue to make card videos. I'm going to do a mixture of both, which I have been doing for a long time, but it's just been like, I would say 80% cards. Now it might be 60-40, 70-30, something like that. But I like to just mix it up because content-wise, like my strategy is to just like show what I'm doing pretty much and just like kind of be open and transparent. But I think that sports betting is an audience that could be very similar to people who do cards. So if I go out there and I make a bunch of sports betting videos and I pick up an audience of sports gamblers, I think that when they see my card videos, it's actually doing a conversion. I don't know what percent it's converting, but I think people are coming into my content for one thing. They might be seeing something else and they might get drawn to it. So I'm kind of trying to do a thing that's helping out the entire hobby by making content of something that's closely related. And I think Fanatics is involved with sports betting too. I'm not positive on that. But I think that the industries are very close. And I think that I could convert some people to be card people, which is the ultimate goal.
Like Hockey Cards Plus says here, games are more interesting and fun to watch when you have money on the line, whether it's fantasy sports or just straight gambling on the teams to win, prop bets. It is fun. I did some DFS during the Stanley Cup playoffs. It does make the games more interesting, and you want to see every goal and all the points that are being doled out and all the other type of stats. It is exciting. But as far as the sports betting goes, do you look at sport for yourself? Do you look at sports betting as a potential income stream or revenue stream? Do you feel like you have an edge, or are you really doing it to make content because you like it? It's entertainment. How are you approaching it?
I mean, I am better at betting certain things than others, but I just love to gamble. Like I play poker. I just love. I like action. Like I like things moving fast. Like I like sometimes I'll bet on the first inning just because I want to get a bet quick and I just want action. But it's like I would say that in football I'm a profitable bettor, but like I'm betting a lot of baseball right now just because like it's the only thing on. But I like to bet mostly on football, basketball, and then college sports I'm actually pretty good at. But I don't think that – I mean, baseball's tough. Baseball's tough.
Yeah, it can go any way on any given day, right? For sure, for sure. The Hobby with Cage says, CBlez is a legend. See you at the National. We will see you there, Cage, if you're still in the room. Good to see you.
I'm excited to see you, Cage, at the National.
There you go. There you go. Mosaic, another Fanatics comment, but I want to do this. He says, I hope you're right. I'm just being devil's advocate. Fanatics represents a big sudden investment in the hobby. They strong-armed tops. I'm suspicious of their game plan. I think that's fair. My only rebuttal to that, or just response even, is that when you have the leagues invested, they are accountable to the leagues. And I think that's going to that's like a safety net. I hope that's a safety net for the hobby, that because of that, they will have the long term of the hobby at the forefront of their strategic planning, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I hope it is, but it's really tough to say it will be for sure. There was a follow-up comment to this. Someone made a comment about if the Fanatics IPO going to have an impact on things, and I think it does. Oh, right here, John says, do you think a Fanatics IPO will affect the quality of the cardboard gradually over the years? Listen, I just know from working in corporate America, in M&A, and in with taking companies public, I can just tell you that the amount of resources that get poured into a company that goes from being private to public is immense. The amount you now need to build a compliance department, your financial reporting department grows. The amount of money you spend on shareholder communications it's amazing. Like millions of dollars a year get spent just to mail things to your shareholders through the what are they called? The intermediaries there. So it's and then that money has to come from somewhere. That's what I'm getting at. That money has to come from somewhere, and it's probably going to come from revenue. So take it for what it is. I am not a fan of hobby companies going public. Personally, I don't like that as in the future. But to the comment from Mosaic about the comment that Mosaic put about being suspicious of the strategy or the plan is that, yeah, you go public and that's your liquidity event. That's when those early investors get out with a handsome profit in many cases. And what happens from there, I can tell you, the last company I worked at, we went public, and I cringe at how much time we had to spend on compliance and everything else goes along with it. And then we were acquired by another company, and they just ruined the company. They just ruined it. So it can happen. It can definitely happen. Sorry, Chad, I'm kind of on a tangent there, but anything you want to add to anything I just said?
No, I was just trying to listen to you. I don't know much about stuff like that.
I love that you just say it and don't pretend to know anything that you don't, because a lot of people will just pretend. Let's see. Michael says CBlez should keep it all going. He's playing all angles, and cards are the best hedge for gambling. Do you consider cards to be a bit of a hedge towards gambling? Like if you're losing some money on gambling, you might make some on cards?
No, not really. No. I would say that I think he's just saying that cards are safer, and he's right. You'd rather, if you lose a bet, that's the end of it. But if you have a guy and something happens, there's still time to recover in cards, and that's the beauty of cards. You don't actually lose until you sell. So I think that, yeah, cards are definitely way safer than sports betting.
I think you're right. I don't sports bet much at all. The odd time I go to Vegas, I'll throw down a bet for who the Stanley Cup champ is going to be. I've never won. I've always been wrong. So don't listen to me at the beginning of the season when people ask me who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup. I'm probably wrong. Bet against me on that. But I think you're right. I think cards, at the end of the day, you have something from them. Let's talk a bit about Blez Sports Card, the company that you have with your brothers. What is Blez? Just tell me, what is Blez? Keep it simple. What is Blez Sports Cards? What's the arrangement you have there with your brothers?
We do group breaking every day, and we host it on YouTube. We have 3 channels. One's Blez Baseball, Blez Football, and then Basketball. And we started back in 2016 when group breaking was relatively new. I think group breaking started pretty much in like 2011, 2012. We started in 2016, and we've been breaking ever since. We focus mainly on the modern cards, which basketball, baseball, football. We do like soccer, F1 and stuff like that. Not really for breaks, but we do it for personals. We have a personal stream that's on Instagram pretty much every day. And we work just as hard, if not harder, than anyone in the industry in terms of like putting the hours on the camera. We're live for over like 40 hours a day between all our channels. And we do it every day, every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. We're always breaking. And we're all about the passion. We're all about the moments, the memories, the friendships, the community, the family. That's the most important thing to us, because we've been breaking for such a long point at this time. We have a long body of work, and we have a lot of people that love us because we create experiences that make for lifelong memories. And that's like the ultimate thing. When I can remember something that happened in 2017, 2019, big pulls, just like moments that happen, stuff like that. That's the beauty of group breaking. It's like a community oriented thing. It's just innate in group breaking is community. So like in our chats, everybody wants everyone to hit. We want like just the boxes to be good so everyone does good. And yeah, it's something that I couldn't have dreamed of doing sports cards as an adult because I've been doing it my whole life, and it's the most amazing thing. And also to be able to do it with my brothers is amazing too, because we all collected together when we were younger, and now we pretty much get to carry it out as adults.
And kind of off topic from sports cards, not cards, but one of your brothers was bring me up to speed, a professional poker player, had some success, right?
Yeah, my oldest brother, they call him the backer. He used to play professional poker back in the day, and now whenever he wins a tournament, he talks about cards. He talks about cards. It's so funny.
I've seen one clip of that a while ago where he talked about sports cards being interviewed after winning some tournament or at least cashing in a tournament. And I talk about sports cards. That's awesome. Is he still playing poker professionally?
He plays, but he plays minimally. What?
Is it Jared?
Jared,
yeah. Okay. I sat next to him for a few minutes at the poker tournament at the Beckett Industry Summit back in October, I think it was. And I was actually late. I had to go up to my hotel room to do a stream, to do one of my shows. And it was like, and I still had chips. So I went, I actually sat beside him, and I had to go all in every hand because I had to lose my chips. And I ended up, I think actually like crippled him to a degree because I went all in with rags and they hit. And, so it's pretty funny. Anything can happen in a baseball game, anything can happen in the hand of poker before the flop, right? So the Hobby with Cage says, why wasn't Jay Lee included in Talon's Hobby House of Influencers? No one does more content than Jeremy. I couldn't tell you why, Cage, but got enough on my plate. So congratulations to you if that is something that you are proud of and worthy of being congratulated on being part of the House of Influencers, which I haven't even heard about. So very cool. Eric Stefano, good evening to you. Thanks for being here. Tip of the mitt, first national. Can't wait. Let's just take a quick second, Chad, and say if you're going to your first national here in 2023, and I mean, let's face it, the hobby content airwaves are full of national tips. Do you have a national? You've been going since you were a kid. Do you have a tip for the national that might be different than the other ones we're seeing all the time? Put me on the spot here.
I would say make sure that you eat. Like you have to eat because it can be tough to sometimes people forget to eat because they're so focused on the cards. So that's like a big one. I would say, I don't know. You just gotta, it's tough to see everything, I would say. So you kind of got to make sure you hit all the aisles. I would pay attention to where you are to make sure that you haven't seen that section because it's so big that you kind of want to you want to hit everything, but it might not be possible. So I would kind of try to be aware of where you are.
There you go. Good tip. My tip, which I put out there, on IG and elsewhere is, and it's smack in the face of what a lot of people say. A lot of people say, get your bearings, go into the show, walk around, pick out a few target cards you want, and then, go have lunch, think about which card you want to spend your budget on or cards, and then go back and buy those ones. And I say no, because if you do that, unless those are McDavid, unless those are young guns or, really common cards, Jordan, Fleer rookies, Trout Tops updates, there's millions of those. You'll find those no problem. But if it's a rare card and you really want it, and it's either a scarce rare card or a card that's just beautiful for the grade, a vintage card that isn't rare but is scarce when it's really nice for the grade, don't wait, because someone else will snap that up. It will not be there when you get back. So that's my sort of national tip. Zach says strong-armed is an interesting term to use in a billion-dollar business. Everyone is using their leverage to make money. Yeah, let's not be too naive about how big business actually works. Mosaic Mind says, thanks for indulging me. I've come across as Debbie Downer in this chat. Sorry. I just have suspicions of sudden influxes of capital into relatively small businesses. Please don't apologize for that. We want to see all different thoughts, and sometimes I'll respond to them favorably, and sometimes I'll just be like, no, that's not the way it is. At least that's just how I see it. That's just my opinion. Again, agreement is not required here, but when there is agreement, then hey, we're onto something. Here's one, Chad. Again, another one that's a little bit maybe out of your wheelhouse, as you've said, but Currency Project says, going public, would that change the business model from hobby to investment securities or gambling? Would that invite oversight body to get involved, SEC? It's already a security and an investment as it is. So I don't think that going public changes the way the government looks at sports cards as gambling or additional regulation. We're talking about like simply financial reporting and compliance with accounting and standards like that. Take portable chargers with you as a tip from Cobra Diamond. That's a really good one. Facebook user here had the same one. Tip says, love this chat. Helpful tips for sure. I am making a list to stay focused on. Very good. Lots of comments. It's like, Chad, we've got several here. I'll read through them, but like each one can take us into overtime, I'm sure. So let's just go. Professor says, are breakers able to share the odds of getting a hit, or is the information about print runs not available to give such odds? Only if it's made public, right, Chad?
We know what you know. It's the same thing.
Ben Diamond says, when they go public, ideally more transparency with regulation. To be honest, though, cards are a small part of their portfolio. Apparel is their moneymaker. Yeah, but that could start to shift, not significantly, but I do think that they're not building up this sports card business to not give it attention, I don't think. Darren says, eat food. The next you'll say is leave the poker blackjack tables and go to the bathroom. Nonsense.
I'm not kidding. People forget to eat, and I'm one of those people.
You can. Oh, Chad, that happens to me too. When I go to Toronto, I'll get to the show at 8:00. I'll sit down at the Toronto Expo. I get there at 8:00. I've got my Tim Hortons breakfast in hand. I'll scarf it down, have my coffee. 8:30, I'll start walking around the show, looking for the early bird worm. I'll come back to my booth before the show opens. I'll open up my booth, and then I'll do deals until 9:00 at night. Holy crap! I haven't peed all day. I haven't had a bottle of water. It's like you have to be mindful of these things. So be mindful of them. Stuke says 100% correct on buy it when you see it. If it's scarce or rare, it probably won't be there when you go back. It might not even be there 10 minutes later. So definitely don't do that. Mark from Ultimate Pastime, we'll see you in a few days, buddy. Says you're both great for the hobby. Make sure you bring a phone charger, snacks, and water.
It's good to see you in here, Mark.
Always good to see Mark. One of the best in the hobby right there, as far as just loves what he's doing. Great energy. If you're not following Ultimate Pastime on Instagram yet, please go ahead and do so. You won't regret it. Mosaic Mind says, CBlez, do you have any cards in your collection that you will never part with?
I would part. But Mosaic Mind, I just want to say I appreciate all your questions. I don't see it as a Debbie Downer. I see it as more of you want genuine thoughts on what you've been thinking about in your head. And I'm sure other people think about that stuff. So I just want to say that keep thinking in depth about the hobby because it helps the conversation. So I appreciate that.
I agree. And, the other thing is that I need to be kind of like shown other ways of thinking than just my own, because I'm only one. We're all only one brain each, right? I just have my own brain, my experience. I try to be open-minded and consider the downside, you always need to consider the downside on most things that you go into in life. What anything, one of my best mentors ever once said to me, whenever you go into a deal, you always have to think about how you're going to unwind that deal. Always consider that. So, it's a different thing, but it's similar. Always look at what the downside can be and present that devil's advocate outlook, because it might just give you more insight, take you outside your comfort zone, outside your own way of thinking. And if you're open-minded, you'll be open to that discussion, and you won't just shoot it down right away because you're ignorant to what it might be. And you just think it's your way or the highway, which a lot of people do. So
I can't believe that a lot of people do. Like, I really just can't believe it. Like, we only know what we know. And then it's better to listen to someone else who knows more on a certain subject that you don't, because then you're going to pick up more. And then the next time you're going to know even more. So it's like, it doesn't even make sense.
Be willing to learn. Just be open-minded and willing to learn. And listen, the way I define being open-minded, Chad, is I have my theories on the way the world works, the way the hobby works. But if someone presents me with their theory and I think to myself, you know what? That makes more sense than my currently held belief on that matter, I push that out and I take your theory and I make it my own. That is now my new way of looking at that particular item, that particular issue in life, the world, or the hobby, because I didn't know it before. My brain didn't allow me to go there because I just never saw it. I only have walked my shoes. I haven't walked yours, so I don't know all your theories. But you present me with one as an open-minded person, I'm going to at least consider it. I'm going to evaluate it. And if I think it makes more sense in mine, and that's up to me to decide, I'm going to make it mine. That is how I define being open-minded. I strive to live that way. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I'm sure sometimes I don't, and I might miss out on some really good and better theories or ways of looking at things. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. You just got to, you said it perfect. We'll just move on. You said it perfect.
Okay. Let's go to this one from Zach. He says, do either of you have any comment on the expectations around production value at card shows going forward with the announcement of Fanatic events? Do we want card shows to look like the Mint Collective? I'll let you go first.
Great question, Zach. And I think it's kind of just like thought, because we don't know what's going to happen because they just announced that they're forming as a company. But personally, I love the Mint. I think it's one of the best shows that they have. You were there. I think that, I think more card shows in the future should look similar to the Mint. I'll say that, because any person could come in to that show and have a good time. I think that the fact that there's carpet throughout the whole thing, there's high production activations going on with the companies in the space. I think that stuff, like events like the Mint, should be more prevalent. And I think that, the production value on a lot of shows does need to go up 100%. It needs to be better. And I think that Fanatics will up the standards to shows. I don't know when, but I hope that they do.
Yeah. Well, I hear you. I haven't put a ton of thought into Fanatics events yet, but I do have some thoughts I'll just share. And first of all, I don't think the National is going to go away, because if you think about it, we talked about earlier about how Fanatics is going to have businesses in all different areas of our hobby, of the sports card memorabilia industry. They have, and all of those businesses have competitors. Even Topps has competitors. Now, maybe not licensed competitors, but even Topps will have competitors. And so why would Upper Deck and Leaf and all the grading companies and all the companies that are not owned by Fanatics, why would they abandon the National to go to a Fanatics show? Especially, like, what is Fanatics like? Does Fanatics events want to have the National go away? Are they going to set up a show? Are they going to set up a show that same weekend somewhere else and have Topps be the only card company on display and have Fanatics live events the only company doing live events, and have sorry, not live shopping be the only company doing live shopping? Is their auction house going to be the only auction house that can PWCC? Is that going to be the only auction house that can be set up there? If that's the case, then maybe they do become the national if everyone else is welcome. But I don't think that's going to be the case because they're not going to own every competitor to PWCC and every competitor to all the other companies that they have acquired or are going to acquire. So that's my non-complete thought on that piece of it. But then you've got all the other shows. You've got the Burbank show, the Dallas show, the East Coast shows, all the regional shows. Those aren't going to change. They're not going to change unless they are partnering up with Fanatics. They're not going to change because they've got there's 140 years worth of cards to be sold and transacted upon at those shows. Fanatics again only has an impact as far as actual cards goes on 2023 forward, a very, very small percentage of everything. So I love the Mint Collective too, Chad. I thought it was awesome. I love that elevated experience, and I can see Fanatics taking out the Mint and changing the Mint into something else or just the next evolution of it. But I don't think that it's good that they are going to have much of an impact at all on existing card shows, unless I'm totally wrong. And they go out to each and every state and province and country that has a hobby activity and sets up a show in those places on their own. But I don't think they're going to do that.
I mean, putting aside of Fanatics events, if they do make better card shows, it's going to force other people to up their experiences, or else when you compare the modern card shows to the future card shows, they're not going to look that good. So I just think that you don't know what's going to happen because a lot of these card shows only came around in the past like 3-4 years. The National's been around, but every other card show we mentioned has been since the COVID boom. They've been big shows. So I think that Fanatics events, we don't really know anything because they just announced, but I do think that the card show experience at a base level does need to be a lot better and a lot better. It's got to be, the casual person needs to be able to come into the show and not say like, it needs to be for more than just card focused is my point. It
Right.
can't just be like transactions and deal making. There needs to be other things at these shows.
Yeah, and Fanatics can definitely bring out athletes themselves. I think that would be a big part of it. Experiences with athletes. You think about the Mint Collective. It had a heavy like corporate presence, a lot of corporate exhibitors with really nice activations. And if they're going to stay committed to the national, and they're going to stay committed to maybe a couple of other shows annually, they're not going to have budget to set up at every Fanatics event that is put on, especially if Fanatics is going to put on like 6 events a year. If they're going to put on 1 or 2 big events a year, maybe they take out the Beckett Industry Summit. A lot of people are speculating that event doesn't mean anything anymore. And so Fanatics can have the Industry Summit now under their name. Maybe the Mint Collective becomes, they just take over that event and just replace it. I could see that happening, but I don't see corporate presence on any much more of a regular basis than we're already seeing it, because these shows cost a lot of money for these companies to send out all their employees, set up these installations, and sponsor these events.
I agree, but one thing that I do think is IMG is the company that like partnered with Fanatics, I think, in this company. And I think that they're also involved in the Mint currently and at the beginning. So I think the Mint's not going to go away. That's going to be more of like one of their big events, if I had to speculate.
Yeah, that might become like right now, or up until the last Mint, it was Collectible, Omaha Productions, Peyton Manning, and IMG. Collectibles they're out of that. I think they're out of business basically now. So they're not on the Mint Collective anymore, is my speculation. I don't have any facts on that. And then you're left with Omaha and IMG. Well, it makes a lot of sense for IMG and Fanatics to just sort of take that over. Or who knows if Mint Collective will even happen next year. I don't know. But I can see a new ownership group being made up again of IMG and Fanatics sort of taking over what the Mint Collective has been meaning to be over time.
This is a new thing, though, that I love about the hobby. All this drama and stuff that is happening, I didn't really experience any of this stuff as a kid. Nobody talked about all this stuff, especially on like social media or on a national stage. And now you see ESPN articles, you see MSNBC, all these companies, they're talking about this stuff. And I like to just follow it all. And I'm super appreciative that there's more coverage of the hobby, because back in the day, you just had to talk to your friends or go to your LCS or a card show. But it was kind of hard to engage with the whole country of card collectors. And now it's a lot easier, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, agree. Well said. Zach here says, if card shows become a destination event for families or groups of friends, then I could see saving your chunk of savings on the show with the best production. And right now, that like the National, even though it might not have the best production, but it's still pretty darn good. Like it's a behemoth to take down. I don't think National is going anywhere personally. Mosaic Mind says the relationship of the card producer to the consumer collector was ultimately quite important to the producer. The producer had respect for that relationship. Will Fanatics keep that going? I don't know. Time will tell. I agree. Time will tell on that. Dave Kaplan says, Blez, a lot of your videos are funny. Are you sometimes surprised when other people find your videos funny? Or do you always know when a video will get a laugh or potentially go viral?
I think that some of them are made to be funny and people don't see it as funny, but a lot of it is educational. But I'm also trying to entertain. And by that, comedy does play a part. So I don't mind if people laugh. Honestly, it's fine.
I wanted to ask you, so, and I have a bullet point on my notes here. It says shirt off, dancing, and then dancing shirtless. You've done all these things on in your content. And I mean, let's face it, there are the people who are like, he's just having fun. They see it for what it is, I think, like myself, and just say, he's having fun, double tap, get a laugh, move on. And then there's people that just are like, they shake their heads, they make rude comments in the comments. Talk about that a little bit. How do you process the types of comments your funny content generates?
The hate is something that is pretty high, I would say. But I think that, as people have told me, I'm putting myself out there. So it comes with the territory. You're going to get positive comments. You're going to get negative comments. But the approach I try to take is don't get too high on the positive. Don't get too low on the negative. Just kind of like keep doing what I'm doing, put my head down and focus on making great stuff. But I would say that the hate does come in, and it's been a lot more recently. I don't know why, but it is what it is. I don't really mind it that much. It just comes with the territory. And I think that I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and having a good time doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is the hate comes with the territory. You can be a content creator / influencer like yourself that has a huge following. You can be a more moderate one like myself, a small one that doesn't have a huge subscriber followers.
Well, you're big. You're big.
But well, I'm tall. I'm 6'6". But I do have my critics and my haters, let's say. But I'll tell you one thing, Chad, and I think you feel the same way. I'd way rather be the one creating and putting yourself out there and, doing what we're doing versus the people that are simply criticizing, critiquing, and having that hate. I don't know. I'd rather be creating original content versus not. And I'd rather be the one getting the hate than the one doing the hating, because it's just I don't know. It's having that anger and that in you. I mean, I've had angry periods of life too, and I don't think it's healthy, mentally. So your approach, I like it a lot. Like you said, don't get too high on the highs, too low on the lows. It's a great way of looking at it. So I would just say kudos to you on that for sure.
It's tough though. It's especially when you're not feeling well. Everyone goes through ups and downs as people, and seeing that negative comment sometimes it can be annoying, but you just got to realize at the end of the day it doesn't really matter that much. Just keep going.
Keep going. And, you know, the way I process it a lot is I just think to myself, you know, it's fuel to just keep doing what I do and to try and level up and level up and level up and be just like, because they say success is the best revenge. And that's when that's kind of, now I'm not saying it's I have success, but I'm striving towards it. I think I'm always in life striving towards success as I define success for me, not how you define or anyone else defines it. We all define success our own way, just like, and there's infinite amounts of that, of ways to define it. So just striving towards increasing my level of success. And sometimes, listen, the positive comments fuel that as well as the negative. It's all kind of fuel. And so, but it takes some concentration, I think, to be able to convert the negative into a positive.
I agree.
Okay. Let's go to some comment. We'll wrap up in very soon here. We're over 2 hours. Okay. Cobra says there is always someone negative in every group. Move past them. Great advice, Cobra Diamond. Thank you for that. Zombie says, CBlez, let the fans know about Zombie Line.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Me neither. Lapper says, I wish I was big enough to have haters. Check out Lapper's YouTube channel, everybody. Check out Lapper's hockey card flips. Oh, Cobra Knight says, sounds like a phrase on a shirt. Mark says, Jeremy has a lot of fans. I appreciate that, Mark. And gaining more. Chris Condor, welcome to the show. Mosaic says, I think Jeremy's idea of the sports leagues having an interest in how Fanatics business operates is highly important in protecting the hobby. That makes sense to me. Hobby health equals sports health. EJ, good to see you. EJ. EJ from Burbank Show.
My boy.
What's up, EJ? Good to see you, pal.
Mookie
Gilson. Jeremy, you need to give CBlez one of your disembodied head shirts. He'll never take it off. Yeah, I forgot about those, to be honest, Mookie. But yeah, what he's talking about, Chad, is on my YouTube channel, there's like a shop tab. And if you click on it, there's like, I designed 2 different Sports Cards Live t-shirts. One just has the Sports Cards Live logo. The other has my face. Because, you know, the floating head brand that I've developed over 3.5 years on Sports Cards Live did that just for fun. And I think I sold like half a dozen of them. So not too many. They're not very popular. I don't blame them. Who'd want this mug on their shirt? But I appreciate that, Mookie Chilson. Thank you, Darren. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Let's start to wrap up, Chad, because we're in overtime, as you can see. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Any ideas, anything going through your head that you'd like to talk about before we wrap up?
I just want to say I appreciate everybody coming in and watching and engaging. And I love the way that people in Jeremy's community think about the hobby. And they're very questioning, asking a lot of questions. I think that's a good thing. I think that's how we move the hobby forward, is by questioning what's going on and making sure it's actually good. And I just want to say that I'm glad and I'm thankful that everybody included me in the conversation about just what we talked about tonight. I think we had some great conversation, and I think that more people out there need to have open conversations. It's not always about just agreeing with everybody just to agree. You have to think freely, think independently, and think on your own to determine what you think, and then see if you agree or not. You can't just blindly agree. And I think a lot of people in here did that tonight. And I thank you guys for allowing me to come on. I appreciate it. Jeremy, you as well. And I'm excited for where the hobby is right now. I think we're in a good spot, and I think the future is bright.
Great closing comments. I'll just add a bit to that. So, you know, in terms of agree and be informed. Inform yourself. Don't just listen to anybody on YouTube or anywhere else and consider it factual and truth. Do some of your own research if you want to before you just adopt someone else's thoughts as your own. Be a free thinker, be your own thinker, and realize that not everybody is out there telling the truth all the time, and what there a lot of things you hear out there on the sound waves are just baseless. A lot, not all the time. Some of it's really good. Some of it's very factual and should be out there, but a lot of it can often be baseless for sure. I'll read the closing comments from the chat, guys. Get them in right away, and we will get there. Currency Project says not popular equals scarce. Those shirts are out of 6. We want a couple. Cobra says you'll probably discuss it, but what is the new rules? The local card shops can. Yeah, well, we're not going to get into that, Cobra. Plenty of other coverage on that, though. Darren says, Chad, are you ever conflicted your cards versus your bets? Any hedging? We kind of covered that already. I think, Chad, do you want to just add anything to that?
I consider them separate, pretty much completely separate.
Mark Santucci, good show. Jeremy, enjoy Chicago. Speak to you in August. Take care, Chad. Very nice, Mark. Good to see you as always. Tip of the Mitt says, thanks. Collect what you choose to. Good night, gents. Thank you. Tip of the Mitt, Chad. We'll see you at the National. I'm going to be basing myself at the tag grading booth. Make sure you come by. I want to give you a tour and show you what we're all about there, and do a bit of content with you on that if we can. Thank you very much, Joe Perot, Eric Stefano, Cobra Diamond, Mosaic Mind. Good to see you. Sorry, Chad, I didn't give you a chance to respond to that, but yeah, definitely come by there.
No, 100%. I'm going to stop by the booth. I'll see you at the National. And thank you, everybody, for coming in. This was awesome. It feels like, honestly, it was like 5 minutes. It's been 2 hours, but I feel like I could talk about the hobby, obviously, 24/7. So thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Great to have you. And we'll have you back again, man, eventually. But looking forward to seeing you in a few days in Chicago at the National. Everybody out there, thank you again for joining. Good to see you all. I see you, Joe, Lapper, Darren. Thank you for the final comments, you guys. Double feature on the channel on Monday. We're doing an REA auctions catalog showcase, and then that night we have MC Mondays live. Foul Fireball says, I bought a Jay Lee head shirt. My wife thinks it's weird. I love it. That's awesome, Jeremy. His name is Jeremy too. Thank you for doing that.
One thing I want to say before everyone leaves, everybody should be watching all of Jeremy's coverage on all these auctions. He pretty much created a new avenue of content where he's giving coverage of the auctions as they're ending. And I think that it's a great content idea. I appreciate it very much as someone who loves the hobby, because I think it's going to draw people in to view that stuff. Everybody should be checking out all the time when he goes live to watch the auctions end if you can, because it's definitely some content that the hobby needs.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. I'm having a ton of fun with it, and working with 7 different auction companies, consigners now. So definitely doing a lot of it. Enjoy it. And well, thank you for those comments. And with that, everybody, thank you so much. This episode is over.